it, but all of you know it. Israel is expected to remove Hamas from the equation. It's very nice that you mention it, but who is going to do it? It is on our shoulder to make it happen. We are left to do the real work, to eliminate Hamas, the ultimate obstacle to peace. And make no mistake, Hamas is the biggest winner of any endorsement here today. By the time the speeches conclude, they will congratulate you. They will declare this is the fruit of October 7th. This is their reward for storming across our borders, slaughtering entire families in their homes, burning people alive, kidnapping children and the elderly, raping women, and dragging hundreds into captivity. And now, with this declaration, they learn a deadly lesson that such savagery brings political reward. That lesson is as dangerous as any weapon. And if anyone doubts that Hamas will continue down this path, look no further than this week's terrorist attack at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Innocent civilians gunned down as they waited for their morning commute. That is a proof. Hamas and its allies will not stop. They do not seek peace. They test again and again whether terror still pays. Madam President, this declaration is one-sided. It does not designate Hamas as a terrorist organization, and it dares to equate the release of Israeli hostages with the release of convicted terrorists. Shame on you. This meaningless political maneuver takes place while innocent people remain blindfolded in Gaza's tunnels, starved, tortured, waiting. Meanwhile, many members of this assembly blindfold themselves by choice. By endorsing this declaration, you cover your own eyes. You choose not to see the truth, to ignore the facts. Israel will not wear that blindfold. We see the hostages. We see the terror. We see this declaration for what it is, a political gesture, an act of theater. Madam President, we will not allow Hamas to win in this assembly what it could not gain on October 7th.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, U.S. opposition to this resolution should come as no surprise. The United States opposes the New York Declaration, as we oppose the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution and the resolution that mandated it. GA action on the New York Declaration is yet another misguided and ill-timed publicity stunt that undermines serious diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. Make no mistake, this resolution is a gift to Hamas. It is likewise cynical, transparently driven by the domestic politics rather than a serious foreign policy agenda. As Secretary Rubio has noted, progress in negotiations aimed at achieving a ceasefire over the summer collapsed when one of the states organizing the conference encouraged Hamas's intransigence by announcing its intention to recognize a conjectural Palestinian state. Far from promoting peace, the conference has already prolonged the war, emboldened Hamas, and harmed the prospects of peace in both short and long term. The United States will not participate in this insult to the victims of October 7th, but we will continue to lead real-world efforts to end the fighting and to deliver a permanent peace. We should be focused on how to end the war and eliminate and disarm Hamas. This war could end tomorrow if Hamas was disarmed, released hostages, and surrendered. But Hamas continues to refuse. Today's resolution is yet another counterproductive gesture that only rewards Hamas, drags out the war, and undercuts the very diplomatic efforts to free the hostages and end the suffering in Gaza, which the New York Declaration claims to support. The declaration this resolution endorses is merely another example of the stale thinking that has led to failure after failure in the Middle East peace negotiations for decades, but remains prevalent in the halls of the United Nations and among too many of its members. The declaration engages in disturbing moral equivalence and fails to recognize the reality that Hamas's terrorism on October 7th was the reason this war was necessary, and its refusal to free the hostages and lay down its arms is the reason this war continues. The version of the declaration being voted on today even continues to contain language endorsing the so-called right of return, which would mean the demographic death of Israel as a Jewish state. For these reasons, the United States urges delegations to join us in voting against the resolution. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States. We have heard the last speaker in the explanation of vote before vote. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/AD/L1/revision 1 entitled Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft resolution A/AD/L1/revision 1, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/AD/L1/revision 1 entitled Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solutions. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 142. Against, 10. Abstentions, 12. Draft resolution A/80/L1/revision 1 is adopted. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations again that they are strongly urged to limit explanation of vote to 5 minutes, which should in any case not exceed 10 minutes and be made from their seats. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bulgaria.
Madam President, Bulgaria has supported the resolution we have just adopted and would like to reaffirm its principled support for the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and for the establishment of an independent, democratic and viable state of Palestine, living side by side in peace and security with Israel. We recall that Bulgaria recognized the state of Palestine in 1988 and has consistently contributed to efforts aimed at achieving a peaceful two-state solution in line with international law and relevant UN resolutions. Bulgaria once again calls for an immediate ceasefire and the release of all hostages, as well as for urgent measures to alleviate the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. We strongly condemn the terrorist acts of Hamas and stressed the necessity of its permanent exclusion from the political realm. Bulgaria reiterates its unequivocal condemnation of terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, regardless of its objectives. Terrorism must never be associated with any faith, religion, or ethnicity. A coordinated international response remains essential in this regard. We expect all parties involved to adhere to this clear and consistent position. At the same time, Bulgaria acknowledges the complexity of implementing the two-state solution in the current political context. Certain elements of the declaration, including institutional reforms, electoral processes, and regional security mechanisms, will require further clarification and the establishment of reliable mechanisms to ensure their effectiveness. We underscore the importance of broad legitimacy and internal consensus within Palestinian society, as well as the constructive involvement of all relevant regional and international stakeholders. In closing, Bulgaria expresses its appreciation for the efforts of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in rallying the international community behind the two-state solution. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Bulgaria, and I give the floor to the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank you for convening us today, and I have the honor to deliver this explanation of vote on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The Kingdom of the Netherlands expresses its gratitude to France and Saudi Arabia for convening the conference on the two-state solution. The New York Declaration contains important elements, such as the support for the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people, in line with the ICJ advisory opinion of 19th of July 2024 and the rejection of any territorial reduction. We reiterate that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and we welcome the condemnation of the terrorist attacks committed on the 7th of October and the call to immediately and unconditionally release all hostages. Hamas must be disarmed and cannot be part of any future government in Gaza. The Kingdom of the Netherlands welcomes the clear support for the New York Declaration and the resumption of the conference during High-Level Week. The Kingdom of the Netherlands wishes to underline the need to stand together on the issue of this two-state solution, and we condemn the illegal E1 settlement plan, effectively splitting the occupied West Bank in two. These plans constitute a clear violation of international law, and unilateral steps like these further undermine the viability of a future Palestinian state. The Kingdom of the Netherlands also strongly condemns plans that would amount to annexation to a large part of the West Bank, which would also constitute a flagrant violation of international law. We call on Israel not to take any steps toward annexation. We call on all parties to the conflicts to comply with their obligations under international law, in particular international humanitarian law. An independent, viable Palestinian state existing alongside a secure Israel is the only way this conflict can be resolved. We must persist in our decades-long pursuit of a two-state solution. For the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the recognition of a Palestinian state must be part of a political process leading to a negotiated two-state solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I give the floor now to Lithuania.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to deliver this explanation of vote after the vote on behalf of Lithuania. Lithuania thanks the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France for their efforts to organize the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. We would also like to thank the co-chairs of the working groups for their work and the collective action to revive a political process in this regard towards a just, peaceful, and lasting settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Lithuania voted in favor of the draft resolution entitled "The Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution." However, our endorsement does not extend to the annex of the outcome document. It does not prejudge any sovereign decision by the Republic of Lithuania regarding recognition of the State of Palestine. Madam President, implementation of the two-state solution implies worldwide recognition of two states, Israel and Palestine. Lithuania recalls its statement during the first session of the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution in July 2025. In particular, Lithuania expects that a way can be found to address legitimate Israeli concerns and have them join this process in the future. Furthermore, Lithuania calls for international consensus that by resorting to terrorism and hostage-taking, Hamas has become a major obstacle to the two-state solution and they cannot be part of the future Palestinian state. Lithuania continues to call for a peaceful settlement of Israeli-Palestinian conflict achieved through negotiations and reflecting the interests of both parties, the region and the international community, based on international law and in line with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2735 of 2024. Lithuania remains committed to support the implementation of the two-state solution and intends to participate in the further international efforts in this regard. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Lithuania. I give the floor now to Slovakia, followed by Paraguay, and followed by Marshall Islands.
Thank you, Madam President. Slovakia wishes to express its appreciation for the efforts undertaken in the preparation of the New York Declaration. We recognize the potential of the Declaration in promoting a comprehensive, just, and durable peace in the Middle East. Having in mind a current desperate situation in Gaza, Slovakia has voted to endorse the New York Declaration. Nonetheless, we would like to take this opportunity to clarify that our endorsement does not extend to the annex attached to the declaration. This position reflects our current considerations regarding some of the proposals and recommendations included in the annex and does not preclude our future engagement or dialogue on its contents. We also remain committed to constructive and continued dialogue with all partners, including the United States and Israel, on a post-conflict arrangement in Gaza, one in which all hostages are released, Hamas is disarmed, and is excluded from any role. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the representative of Slovakia and give the floor to Paraguay.
Nuestra delegación aboga por la paz y la armonía entre las naciones y reafirma que el camino del entendimiento y el diálogo y la negociación son los adecuados, siempre y cuando incluya a todas las partes comprendidas. El Paraguay reconoce oficialmente a los dos estados, a Israel y a Palestina. Por eso, considera que este proceso del cual no hemos formado parte, así como tampoco otros actores principales, no es el adecuado para lograr una paz duradera, porque no cuenta con el apoyo necesario de uno de los dos estados sobre el cual versa la declaración, motivos por los cuales el Paraguay ha votado en contra. Gracias.
Muchas gracias to Paraguay. I give the floor now to the Marshall Islands, followed by South Africa and Latvia.
Thank you, Madam President. The Republic of the Marshall Islands wishes to provide a brief statement in explanation of our vote. Our yes vote today affirms the path of peace and negotiations which the Marshall Islands and the international community has consistently supported for over a quarter century. And this solution was long acknowledged by both Palestinian and Israeli representatives, as well as close diplomatic partners, as an arena of mutual focus. And this solution and the lasting peace which would accompany it is slipping away almost beyond our collective grasp. It is very difficult to envision any effective peace process without the two-state solution as a central focus. Our vote today in support of the General Assembly adopting the New York Declaration is not to be mistaken for formal diplomatic recognition of Palestine, which is a separate and sovereign national act. The real view of Hamas, not the Palestinian Authority, as a violent criminal force controlling force in Gaza has to be addressed. Hamas has never acknowledged the two-state solution. Lasting peace in the Middle East won't happen because of the UN majority vote. But such peace won't happen without a two-state solution at the center of future negotiations. Our vote today is not intended to take any partisan side, but to urge and encourage that the only pathway to eventual peace between Israel and Palestine be kept open. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Marshall Islands and give the floor to South Africa.
Thank you, Madam President. I take the floor in explanation of vote on the resolution endorsement of the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and implementation of the two-state solution. We express our gratitude to you for convening this meeting and thank the co-chairs, France and Saudi Arabia, for a successful high-level international conference for peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. This is a very important and long overdue matter. We also thank the co-chairs of the various working groups for their efforts in the build-up to and during the high-level conference in July. As we meet here today, the killings in Gaza are unabating. The genocide continues without any hope that it will soon end. The state of Israel continues to act with impunity and without fear of being held accountable. In recent days, it has extended its illegal actions by now also attacking Qatar in a blatant violation of international law, breaching the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, while also compromising the safeguarding of civilians as outlined in the United Nations Charter and international humanitarian law. This flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the state of Qatar comes against the background of the government of Qatar playing a prominent role as facilitator to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all hostages held by Hamas. Madam President, we note with deep concern the motion adopted by the Israeli Knesset calling for applying Israeli sovereignty over the occupied West Bank and the Jordan Valley, signaling the intention of Israel to annex this territory. This could effectively bury the two-state solution and continue with blatant violation of international law, including UN resolutions and ICJ rulings, which have given hope to the Palestinian people. This motion, together with statements such as those made yesterday by Prime Minister Netanyahu that, and I quote, "There will be no Palestinian state, this land is ours," close quote, undermines the prospect of a Palestinian state. Despite the horror that is happening in Gaza or the occupied Palestinian territories in general, we are pleased that UN member states, in their numbers, have come out in support of the call to end the atrocities in Palestine and implement the almost 80-year-old promise of Palestinian statehood. We are hopeful that the end of the occupation is within reach and the creation of a contiguous Palestine state existing peacefully and side by side with the State of Israel along the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, will soon become a reality. This resolution that we have adopted today, reaffirming the two-state solution, should not distract us from the urgent efforts that are needed to ensure an immediate ceasefire and an end to Israel's genocidal war against the Palestinian people. We should be emboldened to act so that negotiation for a just peace can commence. The stability of the Middle East region and international peace and security in general depends on a just and peaceful resolution to the question of Palestine, and holding those who violate international law accountable to ensure that all states are safe from wanton and brazen aggression, and that international law remains credible. At the request of the General Assembly, the ICJ has issued an advisory opinion finding Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, unlawful, and that it must end rapidly as possible. The court determined Israel's policies and practices, including its settlement expansion, land confiscation, and discriminatory legislation, violate fundamental international law principles, such as the right to self-determination and the prohibition of acquiring territory by force. The opinion also sets obligations for all states to not recognize the illegal situation and not provide aid to maintain it, and requires the UN General Assembly and Security Council to consider actions to bring the unlawful presence to an end. A year ago, this Assembly adopted Resolution A/10/24, calling on all member states to take necessary measures to implement this ICJ advisory opinion. This creates legal obligations on us, all of us, which we must adhere to. Madam President, South Africa voted in favor of the resolution today and welcomed the outcome on 5 September 2025 with a clear understanding that the outcome document, as described in this paragraph, in paragraph 42 of the declaration, was prepared under the authority of the co-chairs and is seen as their own view on the outcome of discussions, as well as proposals from the working groups, and does not preclude a more inclusive approach to negotiations towards finalizing the two-state solution and a true realization of the right to self-determination of the people of Palestine. The outcome serves as an important reference for what is required for a viable two-state solution, while not constituting a determination or prejudgment of the negotiations required to achieve this. Once again, we thank the co-chairs for this outcome document and be assured of South Africa's continued support in this process. I thank you.
I thank the representative of South Africa. I give the floor now to Latvia, followed by the Islamic Republic of Iran and Malaysia.
Thank you. Madam President, Latvia voted yes on the resolution because we continue to call for a peaceful settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict achieved through negotiations and reflecting the interests of both parties, the region and the international community, based on the international law and in line with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2735 and United Nations Security Council Resolution 1397. The ongoing deadly violence proves that lasting peace cannot be achieved by military means. To this regard, we reiterate our solidarity with civilians on both sides of the conflict, as they are the main victims of this ongoing escalation. International community must continue all diplomatic efforts to reach a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, to secure the release of hostages and provide urgent surge of humanitarian aid. Madam President, Latvia has endorsed the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, whereby taking note that its annexes were not subject to today's voting. Today, Latvia's decision to join the declaration does not constitute recognition of the state of Palestine, nor does it render its recognition imminent, retaining a sovereign right to decide upon the question once the relevant conditions are met. Latvia will continue to support the two-state solution and participate in the subsequent meetings of this matter, including in the format of the Global Alliance for the implementation of the two-state solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Latvia and give the floor now to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the most merciful. Mr. President, honorable colleagues, as our world faces an unprecedented situation, the fundamental values we collectively uphold, including humanity, justice, and integrity, are under severe threat by an occupying power whose policies reflect systematic discrimination, territorial expansionism, and disregard for international humanitarian norms. After nearly 2 years of relentless military assault, the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza, are enduring mass killing, forced displacement, starvation, and the systematic destruction of civilian life and infrastructure in flagrant violation of international law. The devastation is not confined to Palestine alone. Israel's repeated aggressions against other countries further destabilize the region and threaten international peace and security. Decades of concessions, diplomatic overtures, and normalization attempts have failed to halt Israel's crimes and illegal occupation, instead emboldening it to intensify its expansionist, racist, and colonial policies. The systematic disregard for United Nations resolutions, shielded by repeated Security Council vetoes and sustained armed transfers, has demonstrated that current approaches, though presented as decisive, cannot achieve their stated objectives. A just and lasting solution will remain out of reach unless the international community adopts binding resolutions that address the root causes, ensure accountability, and uphold the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Madam President, I'm sorry, I said before, Mr. President. Madam President, the Islamic Republic of Iran has consistently called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza, unimpeded humanitarian access and reconstruction that fully respects the rights of the Palestinian people. Iran also recalls its unwavering support for the Palestinian people's steadfast resistance to occupation, foreign intervention, and apartheid policies. Iran affirms that lasting peace can only be achieved through ending the occupation and fully realizing the independence and sovereignty of the State of Palestine. This must be grounded in the genuine will of its original inhabitants, Muslims, Jews, and Christians alike, expressed through a free and inclusive referendum as proposed in document S/2019/862. In conclusion, Madam President, Iran believes that any viable solution must be based on recognizing the Palestinian people's inalienable right to self-determination, rejecting any form of marginalization or forced displacement, and ensuring the full and equal participation of every segment of Palestinian society in shaping the country's future. The international community must urge the Security Council to recommend Palestine's admission as a full member state of the United Nations and ensure full accountability for Israel's war crimes, genocide, and prolonged illegal occupation, including through the imposition of targeted sanctions and the suspension of its UN membership in order to safeguard the credibility of this organization. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran and give the floor now to Malaysia, followed by Pakistan and Algeria. Malaysia.
Thank you, Madam President. Malaysia commends the initiative of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France, which have received overwhelming support of UN member states. Malaysia fully supports the collective efforts of the international community towards the two-state solution and recognition of the State of Palestine. This collective global commitment and acceptance of the two-state solution and recognition of the State of Palestine should be taken as a key step forward to end Israel's colonization, illegal occupation, and politics of dispossession in the occupied Palestinian territory. It is in this context that Malaysia is going along with the draft resolution that seeks to endorse the New York Declaration. At the same time, Malaysia wishes to make its position clear on the New York Declaration. Any initiatives that seek to advance the two-state solution must not be driven only by narrowly defined or politically manipulated security concerns at the expense of the security of the Palestinians and their inalienable rights, including their right to self-determination, as well as their right to statehood. Palestinian statehood is not a reward, it is an inherent right. The realization of the two-state solution and the recognition of the State of Palestine should not be subject to any preconditions. And speaking of security, it should be enjoyed by all, certainly not just for one party or country. Malaysia has consistently called for the establishment of an independent and sovereign State of Palestine based on the pre-1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital, and Palestinian statehood, including its sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the right of return of millions of Palestinian refugees, all of which are guaranteed under international law and therefore must be part and parcel of the solution for it to be viable. Madam President, our efforts must be genuine and not be undertaken for the sake of political expediency in response to domestic pressures. It must be based on full respect for international law and commitment to peace, stability, and justice for all. In the implementation of the NY Declaration, its shortcomings must also be fully addressed. There must be concrete actions and commitments from UN member states with a time-bound action plan to protect and preserve the Palestinians' fundamental freedom and their right to statehood, respect the will and aspirations of the Palestinian people, guarantee security for the Palestinians, including through the immediate withdrawal by Israel from the OPT, diplomatic recognition of Palestine state, and socio-economic development for the Palestinians. Fully support the mandate and role of the UN in providing aid and development assistance to Palestine, including the indispensable role of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, and ensure that Israel is held accountable for its persistent violations of international law, for the crimes of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, and galvanize efforts to deliver justice, including in the form of reparations for Palestinians. This is Malaysia's expectation. Our vote in support of the resolution today reflects our solidarity with Palestine and the international community's commitment to realizing peace, stability, and prosperity in the Middle East region. For this declaration to be meaningful, a first step is for it to bring about an immediate end to the ongoing Israel's war and atrocities in Gaza. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Malaysia and give the floor now to Pakistan.
Thank you, Madam President. We should get used to saying Madam President in this hall and more often in the UN system. Pakistan has voted in favor of the resolution just adopted. In doing so, we reaffirm our long-standing and principled position on the question of Palestine based on the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and the establishment of an independent, viable, and contiguous state of Palestine on the basis of the pre-1967 borders with Al-Quds al-Sharif as its capital, in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the United Nations and international legitimacy. Pakistan has, without prejudice to its long-standing and principled position on the question of Palestine, endorsed the outcome document entitled New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution of the high-level international conference convened in New York from 28th to 30th of July. This endorsement reflects Pakistan's consistent commitment to the realization of a just and lasting peace. Pakistan strongly condemns the ongoing Israeli aggression in Gaza, which has claimed the lives of over 64,000 people. The relentless destruction of homes, schools, hospitals, and other civilian infrastructure constitutes a grave violation of international humanitarian law and has inflicted untold suffering on the Palestinian people. Equally alarming are the continuing attempts by the occupier to expand illegal settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory in flagrant defiance of international law and relevant Security Council resolutions. These actions not only exacerbate the humanitarian catastrophe, but are also an attempt to undermine the prospects for a two-state solution. Israeli illegal actions and blatant violations of international law across the Middle East are endangering international peace and security in the region. It must not escape accountability. Pakistan calls for an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire across Gaza and all occupied Palestinian territories, and full and unimpeded humanitarian access to the besieged and starved Palestinian population. Lasting peace requires a credible political horizon, one grounded in international law, and for this, the occupation must end, and for that is the actual root cause of instability in the Middle East. The convening of the International Conference on the Two-State Solution, co-chaired by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the French Republic, was a timely and necessary initiative to generate renewed momentum and to translate international commitments into concrete actions, advancing the long overdue realization of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and statehood. It must be followed by concrete and coordinated international action to finally achieve the long-coveted peace and stability in the Middle East. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan and give the floor to Algeria, followed by Nicaragua and Namibia.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. يتشرف وفد بلادي بأخذ الكلمة لتعليل تصويته على القرار الذي تم اعتماده للتو. لقد صوتت الجزائر لصالح هذا القرار باعتباره خطوة جماعية وملحة نأمل أن تفتح أفقا سياسيا يلوح فيه بصيص أمل للشعب الفلسطيني الذي يكابد إحدى أحلك لحظاته التاريخية. صوتت الجزائر تأكيدا لدعمها الثابت الذي لا يتزعزع للشعب الفلسطيني وتجديدا لالتزامها الراسخ بإقامة دولة فلسطين المستقلة ذات السيادة الكاملة وعاصمتها القدس الشريف. إن هذا النص يعكس الحاجة لتحرك عاجل لإنقاذ الشعب الفلسطيني من خلال الدعوة إلى الوقف الفوري للحرب الوحشية على غزة وإلى إيصال المساعدات الإنسانية دون عوائق لتخفيف معاناة شعب محاصر ومجوع كما يدين الأنشطة الاستيطانية الإسرائيلية غير الشرعية. إن إعلان نيويورك يبعث برسالة جماعية واضحة مفادها أن السلام الحقيقي لا يتحقق إلا بإنهاء الاحتلال وتمكين الشعب الفلسطيني من ممارسة حقه غير القابل للتصرف في تقرير مصيره، ويؤكد على حق الشعب الفلسطيني في أرضه، حق لا يسقط بالتقادم ولا بالتخاذل. غير أننا نؤكد في هذا السياق أن تصويتنا الإيجابي على القرار المعتمد لا يمس من قريب أو بعيد ثبات الموقف الجزائري ووضوحه، ولا يفهم منه أنه مصادقة مطلقة على مضامين إعلان نيويورك ولا لملاحقه. وإذ نؤيد الغاية الرئيسية للإعلان وهي إقامة الدولة الفلسطينية المستقلة كاملة السيادة وعاصمتها القدس الشريف، فإننا نرفض أي صياغة توحي بمساواة زائفة بين قوة احتلال غاشمة وشعب رازح تحت الاحتلال، أو أي لغة تنتقص من حقوق الشعب الفلسطيني التي تكفلها المواثيق الدولية. كما أننا نشدد على أن استقرار الشرق الأوسط لا يكون من خلال سلام مصطنع، بل ثمرة لسلام حقيقي لا يبنى إلا على إنهاء الاحتلال ورد الحقوق والمظالم إلى أهلها. ونؤكد أن عنوان استقرار الشرق الأوسط هو إنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي للأراضي العربية. وفي الختام السيد الرئيس، نؤكد على أن جدية المجموعة الدولية في إنهاء محنة الشعب الفلسطيني لا تقاس باعتماد إعلان نيويورك اليوم، بل بتنفيذ مخرجاته غدا، والجزائر على أتم الاستعداد للعمل مع جميع الأطراف لترجمة هذه الكلمات إلى أفعال ملموسة تنصف الشعب الفلسطيني وتمنحه الحرية والكرامة والعدالة، وتقود إلى إقامة الدولة الفلسطينية المنشودة وعاصمتها القدس الشريف. شكرا.
Shukran to the representative of Algeria. I give the floor now to Nicaragua, followed by Namibia.
Señora Presidenta, Nicaragua toma la palabra para explicar su posición después del voto. Nuestra lucha por la soberanía nacional y nuestra independencia nos llama a ser solidarios por la liberación nacional y las luchas de los pueblos oprimidos. La causa del pueblo palestino, desde el destierro y la ocupación, clama por un derecho tan fundamental como el aire, el derecho a la libertad, a su autodeterminación, según lo decida el pueblo palestino. Nuestra posición es el fruto de una historia compartida de resistencia y de victorias. Nicaragua, que siempre ha luchado para romper las cadenas impuestas por la opresión, el intervencionismo, imperialismo y neocolonialismo, ve en los ojos de la niñez palestina la misma determinación que tiene nuestro pueblo cuando defiende nuestra soberanía nacional. Señora Presidenta, el voto afirmativo de Nicaragua reitera su solidaridad de siempre con Palestina. La exigencia de los pueblos del mundo es que se debe poner fin al genocidio de Israel en Palestina, un cese inmediato de esta guerra de exterminio al pueblo palestino. La Carta de Naciones Unidas está basada en el principio de la igualdad soberana de todos sus miembros. Palestina tiene que ejercer plenamente ese derecho y no ser la excepción. Nicaragua no reconoce ninguna condicionalidad al establecimiento del Estado de Palestina. Por lo tanto, deseamos expresar que nuestro voto no se debe interpretar como el endoso a cualquier acción o medida que socave los derechos inalienables del pueblo palestino, su libertad, su autodeterminación. Nicaragua seguirá marchando junto a Palestina en el largo camino hacia la libertad. Expresamos nuestro pleno e inquebrantable respaldo al pueblo palestino, a su legítimo derecho a la autodeterminación, a la soberanía, a la existencia, como Estado independiente dentro de las fronteras previas a 1967, con Jerusalén Oriental como su capital. Reafirmamos que la realización de los derechos inalienables del pueblo palestino, incluido su derecho al retorno, es la única base para una paz justa y duradera en la región. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias to the representative of Nicaragua. As the last speaker I have on the list, Namibia, to whom I give the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Namibia voted in favor of the resolution because of its desire to see an end to the genocide perpetrated against the Palestinian people, having gone through the same struggle for liberation itself. Namibia's support is not a diplomatic gesture, but a genuine recognition of the need for the Palestinian people to be allowed to determine their own destiny. Israel continues to act with impunity while the international community stands idle. Namibia continues to condemn the terrifying attacks by the Israeli apartheid regime against the civilians in Gaza and civilian infrastructure, the siege and deliberate starvation which have resulted in the devastating humanitarian catastrophe and protection crisis. There is no justification for breaches in great violation of international law, including international humanitarian law, and we stressed the need for accountability. Namibia calls for the Israeli apartheid regime, the occupying power, to stop attacks and provocative acts against the Palestinian people and to abide to international humanitarian law. Namibia continues to support diplomatic efforts aimed at reaching a lasting peaceful solution, leading to a two-state solution along the Israelis' 1967 border with East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. Namibia further reaffirms its resolute support for the legitimate struggle of the Palestinian people for the inalienable rights to self-determination and the establishment of an independent state with East Jerusalem as the capital in accordance with relevant UN Security Council and General Assembly resolutions. We request the international community to call for the cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and continued to support the Palestinian people through the implementation of the relevant resolutions and all other agreements for the lasting peace in the Middle East. Finally, Madam Chair, Namibia wishes to be registered as a co-sponsor of this resolution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Namibia. By that, we have heard the last speaker in explanation of vote. After the vote, the exercise of the right of reply has been requested. May I remind members that statements in the exercise of the right of reply are also limited to 10 minutes for the first intervention and to 5 minutes for the second intervention, and should be made by delegations from their seats. I call on the observer of the observer state of Palestine to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me at the beginning, since this is my first statement in the General Assembly after you assumed your lofty position as President of the General Assembly, to express our congratulations, delight, and readiness to cooperate and to work with you fully on all issues related to the work of the General Assembly, including the question of Palestine. We will pay you extensive visits to coordinate, to cooperate, and to facilitate the success of the work of the General Assembly on the issues of mutual importance and to us. Allow me also to thank Saudi Arabia and France for the remarkable work that they did so far in convening all of the preparatory meetings, in preparing the documents, in adopting the outcome, the New York Declaration on the implementation of the two-state solution in July, and also today in this chamber. In this connection also, we are grateful to the 17 leaders who led countries and regional groups, who led the deliberation of the 8 round tables. And also I want to thank the overwhelming majority of nations that voted for the endorsement of this declaration, endorsement of the plan for peace, endorsement for the details of that plan in the declaration and in the annex, and the yearning of almost everyone, the international community, to open the door for the option of peace. We heard a voice that this is not endorsing peace, but endorsing something else. I trust that this overwhelming vote and endorsement by all those who voted in favor of this resolution is an illustration of saying, yes, we have a plan, yes, we have a detailed roadmap for peace, and we invite the party that is still pushing the option of war and destruction and attempts to eliminate the Palestinian people and steal their land, to listen to the sound of reason, to the sound of the logic of dealing with this issue peacefully, and for the overwhelming message that has resonated in this General Assembly today. For those who want peace, come and join us. For those who want to save lives, come and join us. For those who want to put an end to the war in the Gaza, this aggression, come and join us. For those who want to release of the hostages and the prisoners, come and join us. For those who want to put an end to using the denial of food and to impose famine against the Palestinian people in Gaza, come and join us. For those who want to rebuild and to reconstruct the Gaza Strip, come and join us. For those who want to have an end to this illegal occupation, come and join us. And for those who are interested in the implementation of the historic advisory opinion of the ICJ, come and join us. For those who want to have a two-state solution, to live side by side in peace and security, and to open the doors for integration in the entire Middle East, and for allowing the Middle East to reach its potential in terms of development, innovation, science, and cooperation, come and join us. All these details and many more details are contained in the declaration that we've endorsed today. And I believe that, Madam President, since this is the first major issue under your presidency that you face, maybe this is a good omen. Come and join us, all those who are interested in peace, interested in dealing with putting an end to the tragedy and allowing the people in the Middle East, all of them, to save their lives, to save the lives of children, and to open the doors for peace and development and progress and hope. Thank you very much, Madam President.
I thank you. By that, the Assembly has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 35. The meeting is adjourned. I wish you all a good day.